is just go through this PowerPoint presentation. And what I want to explain, as I said to you in the emails that you received about 4:15 this afternoon, is, we're not the Gallup organization, and we're not trying to, talk about presidential elections and percentages. What we wanted to do is have some evidence-based information to say, instead of just saying, I know this is a problem, this is what I feel. We wanted to give the residents the opportunity to actually take a survey, share their comments. So now moving forward, we can say that we have a representative sample. Now, the people that want to holler and say, well, I didn't get to, it should have been here. That's my answer to that. So what we're going to do is work with the data that we have, and we'll go through that, and then I'll turn it over to Pastor Smith and Nick Means. We'll also look at just a few of the comments on the West End. What I would ask you to do is, when you're looking at this data at home, don't look at it singularly, don't look at it in a vacuum. As you're looking at some of the graphs and some of the charts, match it up with the comments. The comments is where you get the great information. I tell you, that was a beast transcribing those comments, and also have to give Chris Siffer's daughter, Sierra Siffer, some credit. I started getting a little dizzy and blind transcribing those comments, and she's just an awesome young lady, and she helped put some of these in. But again, just wanted to let you know that this is a collaborative effort. We work with 3 groups, and we have a lot of people that worked on this issue. Now, the reason that I share this, I love quotes, because I think quotes can be kind of a guiding force and a motivation for life, actually. So if people are silent, or people that don't get involved, you're just as bad as what the people that are creating the situation. So that's why I said we need to stand up from this point on. And we're going to go through these fairly quickly. I'm not going to belabor any of these. I won't insult anyone's intelligence. The data kind of speaks for itself. But feel free, we've got a mic that Dee has, if you want to share any discussion about any of the slides, any of the information. But going through the data and looking at the information, this is what the data and the comments show. This is what I call the glean from that particular information. First, residents overwhelmingly said that they don't feel safe in Salisbury, nor do they have a high quality of life because of the issues that are identified. The second thing that I got was residents want police to be more visible. Now, what was surprising to me, when the chief and I talked, he talked about on the east side and the west side how he's increased the number of patrols. So I said again to the chief, you got another best kept secret out there. We've got to find a better communication mechanism to let people know that there are more patrols that are out there. And then the third thing was, residents want the police and city to culturally understand and respect them. My personal feeling is, if you don't take the time to culturally understand me, you don't care about me. So you can see that in a lot of the comments that people wrote. It was a recurring theme where people felt like they wanted more cultural understanding. Dr. Williams, I don't know if she's made it here, she's coming in from Greensboro. She's going to work with the chief on some diversity training and anti-racism training. So we're going to have that in place as well. And then the chief has got some interventions where he's already got in place with Officer Himes as well. And then number 4, the fourth theme that the data showed was, residents want to know that city leaders care about them. That's probably self-explanatory. And then the last thing that I found really interesting was that residents want the neighborhoods to look clean and beautiful. They want aesthetically pleasing neighborhoods. Now, what they didn't say in a lot of the comments is the city needs to come over here. They talked about interventions and resolutions and how they can help. We had multiple recommendations and suggestions about neighborhood cleanup days. We talked, I know Mr. McLaughlin and I have talked about beautification as far as with trees, flowers, things like that. So you'll see some of those comments as well. They want to partner with the city to achieve this. Again, not kind of handing over the keys or just basically saying it's up to the city for that. Now, we had probably well over 200 people that were actually here. I think Steve can tell you that we used every chair that he had available in this place the last time. We had people about 3 or 4 deep out of the lobby. That says a lot when people want to come out and want to participate. Now, as I was telling Steve earlier today, this is a thinking session. So I figured we're going to have some drop-off because, this is a session where people are going to have to actually work tonight. And that's not to disparage anyone, but the people that are here, I appreciate here, and we're going to get some work done tonight. But officially, we have 164 people that actually signed in on the sheet. Again, we had, more people that were here. And out of that number, we have 76 people complete a survey. Now, I've been doing surveys for a number of years, and typically you have about a 25 to 27% participation rate. So I was really happy we had 46% of the people that actually signed in and completed the survey. And I broke those surveys. You'll see that the way they're broken down, I looked at the information, or we looked at the information by overall. Then we looked at the information breaking it out by geographic location. We had more participation from the west end, and we had the least amount of participation from the south end. I think we only had one survey from the south end. But it's like I used to tell people in my professional career, if you go to a restaurant and you get poor service, do you want the manager to say, I'm not going to do anything until I get at least 10 more people to complain? No, I want it fixed when I complain. So, regardless if we have 1 or we have 50, I think we need to put some interventions in place. So that's just a breakdown of how many that we have. Now, we have asked specific questions. Dr. Bird put specific leading questions on the survey. We didn't want this last session to be just about people getting up and just, bitching and moaning and whining and complaining, which I think people have been frustrated long enough. We ought to give them that opportunity if they feel so compelled. But what we wanted to do was take a different approach to this. So we had specific leading questions that we had on the survey. So you can see one was, do the issues that you listed at the top of your survey impact the quality of your life? And you can see the breakdown of the overall surveys. Now, it may not always add up to that 76 number because not everybody's going to answer every question. Everybody's going to respond to every question. So what we had the task of doing is just going in and pulling the numbers from what people actually said. So you can see that 88% of the respondents said that the issues that we did identify, or they did identify, did have an impact on their quality of life. Now, the next question queried the group on whether they felt like their specific areas were adequately patrolled by whether it was the Sheriff's Department or the Salisbury Police Department. And you can see there was about a 50-50 split, there. So you can see that 52% actually said that they do not feel like their areas were adequately patrolled. And we're going to, again, I'm going to just explain these at the overall level, and then as we break down to the geographic levels, I won't do too much explanation, but if you have comments, please speak up. If you have comments that you want to share about particular areas, please feel free to speak up. Yeah, Alex has the mic over here. And then do city leaders care? You can see overall for the surveys, 59% said that they did not feel or they disagreed with that particular question. Now, this is where we broke it out into individual geographic locations. As I said, we broke it out into the west end, east end, north end, south. East Spencer actually had respondents. I think there were just a few East Spencer respondents. The county had a few, but then we had several surveys that had no area selected. And reading the comments, I could attribute those responses to the west end, but I wanted to stay true to the data and just keep it as no area selected. But again, just kind of broke this information. Now again, we're going to have a smaller sample size, but that doesn't negate the fact of the evidence-based information. Now, what we did was just went through every survey and we highlighted every point where someone noted what an issue was that impacted their safety. And not all areas disagree or agree. You can see that in some areas, gangs, drugs, might have been the highest. You'll see in some areas, they had some different things that kind of fell off. to the side. Does this fall in line with West End residents, or does this surprise anyone? Or we have two mics, so you know what I mean. Pretty much in line. What you think? Okay. And then what we also did, and you'll see at the very end, we took all of this information together and pulled out the top 3 concerns that we intended to work on. And we did the same format for each individual area.
Kenny, I'd like to say something. I'm surprised that job opportunities I'm really surprised because probably a third of the complaints I have lack of jobs, not in this area like we're top city. So I'm surprised there's only one comment on lack of jobs. I get that almost every day, so I was coming up about never need more jobs and recruit more. We're trying to do that.
And I think economic development is a concern, and I can't speak for people that responded, but I think what people may tend to do is that immediate presence right outside my door. When that bullet's coming through my door, I'm thinking, do I need a job to stop that bullet, or do I need to? And so I agree. We talked about that last week where you were talking about job opportunities, and that's a real. You'll see that again.
Well, it's probably a third of the complaints I get.
Our job.
And I mean, the citizens all day every day. Probably people want the jobs, but I think it's, I told you before, we hire a lot of kids, and there's some great kids coming out. They can get through programs, and I would hope that some of the other businesses would hire some of these. Yeah, I was just saying, I think that if companies would help with some of the young people, we'll give them jobs, and I think that's important. And my wife and I have done that for 27 years, and I've tried to ask for other folks to give young people jobs. I think it's very important to, Dee said, to keep young men and women of any nationality or what to be able to learn discipline, learn a job, and do a job. And you know you've got to give them time, you've got to do a good job. So I think it helps the future. So I think it's really important, our community, if we could all push more businesses with our young. And I will have to say now, the state has got a little tougher on hiring young people too. I will have to say that. It's not quite as easy as it used to be. So a lot of people are very close. But anyway, that's just not.
Thank you, Mayor. Anybody have any response or any questions about that particular concept? Okay. You go to the next slide. The impact on quality of life. And then this again is going to follow the same format. Whether the West End is adequately patrolled, 69% disagree. And where's Alex at? Can you give it to the chief? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say the jobs is a big issue, especially when you see our young people. The city, I've always said this, that sometimes the city has to put up a shelter. And what I mean by that, you see a lot of our young kids sitting out here because they can't get a job working for the city. And one of the reports that came from HUD about the city of Salisbury and the high poverty that was created here was the high unemployment here in the West End. So when you look at the city officials received this report probably about 2 months ago, or if not longer, and it pointed out that here in Salisbury, HUD had properly said that Salisbury had created 2 high poverty areas. One was the West End, and the other was Green Hill. And part of the problem for the high poverty here was because of the influx of apartment buildings and the unemployment and the amount of vouchers that's used on this part of town. So it becomes a question of also the city's responsibility. Now, one of the things that the city did when Project Safe took over was they hired people who was ex-offenders and gave them jobs. That was if they came to work every day and, they were making essential jobs. But when you look at the greenery around here, sidewalks that need spraying down and all that, there was a bunch of $8 an hour jobs that some of these kids could have had. So sometimes to spur crime and deter young people from getting in crime, the city needs to step up when nobody else will and provide jobs for these kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Wade. One of the things, and I don't see Maggie in here, there it is. We had a meeting last week at Miller or in the back here, in the back room at Miller. And one of the resolutions that came up during that meeting, and again, this is something that I want us to think about, when we're at the point where Nick and Pastor Smith are going to talk to us about resolutions. One of the interventions that we came up with was, why not teach a trade or a skill here? Why not teach bricklaying? Why not teach auto repair? Why not teach, heating and air conditioning? We got to start getting out of that comfort zone of things that we have tried that have not worked. So again, just to say that when we're talking about resolutions, we have to come up with some great interventions. One of my things is, it doesn't matter at this point who screwed it up, we got to fix it together. And that's where kind of we're at right now. Now, the city leaders care on the west end. 58% said they disagree or they don't feel that. Okay, we're going to go through these. And then on the east end, that'll follow the same format. And you can see what some of the issues and concerns are that were noted by those who filled out surveys from the east end. And again, if you, yes, ma'am. Okay, the ones just mean that only one person identified that as a top issue. These are just the numbers of how many people identified these as an issue. So, if it got one issue or one notation, it's up here. Yeah. Is that in line with what
yes.
you see? You want to expand on any, or put you on the spot? Okay. And if you are here representative of that area, please feel free to speak out. And I want to take just a step back, Alex. When we were talking about the east end, that the chief is over here in the corner. I told him at breakfast I wanted to give him the opportunity just to share very briefly, because I didn't know this. He talked about increasing talked about the number of patrols that he has increased on this side. So because so many people said they don't see the patrols, we've got a disconnect somewhere that we've got to fix that disconnect. But I wanted to just give him a brief opportunity to share what he's done on the east and west side.
Thank you. As part of our effort to deal with concerns with respect to police presence in areas, we restructured the city with respect to patrol territories for our patrol officers, and we actually changed the city from a 2-district, which contained actually one district had 4 patrol beats within it, and the other had 5. So we had 9 total patrol beats. We changed that to a quadrant system, and the city is now broken into quadrants. And what that allowed me to do is to place additional officers in those communities that have a demonstrated need. And with that said, it allowed me to go from 1 officer assigned to the West End, for instance, and I tripled that to 3 officers assigned to patrol the West End per shift. In addition to that, our street crimes unit is delegated to spend approximately 90% of their time in these troubled areas, in areas that have a demonstrated need. And the West End, in fact, receives a great deal of attention from our street crimes unit. And I'd also point out that in addition to identifying the West End as an area that needed the additional police presence, we did the same on the east side, where just as the west side has triple presence, the east side also has 3 officers as opposed to 1, like it used to. So, and we're talking Park Avenue, Cemetery Street, and those areas that have difficulties as well that we need to focus on. So that's what that change allowed me to do. Thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you. And one of the other things that I was really surprised about, I've actually seen kids back here playing football behind Price High School. I never knew who they were assigned to, who really facilitated that, and that's part of that police athletic league. And again, you know, the chief and I have some good conversations. We're candid, we're honest, we're open about it. And I said, you know, who knew you were doing that? Did you respond to that? Well, I know that Brenda and Williams' brother has a football league that's been in existence. So, you know, we don't need to recreate or reinvent the wheel. I think that would be a good thing to talk about a partnership that maybe we can impact a lot more kids. But again, communication, you can see, is something that we need to improve upon. The chief said, well, I have snag meetings and I have all these things. And I said, why don't you have things in the community instead of asking people to come, you know, down to your spot? So we talked about maybe him having a monthly meeting, just him. We don't need 25 to 30 police cars sitting out front and a whole bunch of cops sit down here. But maybe we can have a community meeting where he spends a little bit of time talking about what he is doing and then listening to the residents, you know, probably the remainder of the 45 minutes, and I think that would go a long way. So we're already talking about interventions. We're already talking about resolution. Yes, Ms. Atkins.
No, I just had a question. I wondered where would I go to take a look at the crime statistics within the city of Salisbury, especially with respect to the quads that is down there. Do you publish that information, and where would I go to look at it?
I might be able to be heard about it. We actually do look at our crime statistics. In fact, I have a new police planner, if you will, and her position is delegated to do some of that work. This person is actually, it's a new position, and she's learning to do crime statistics. However, we do have that ability still from some of our staff who have done it for us, you know, previously. I was able to reveal some of that information back in January. I think it was January the 7th when I reported a 5-year crime trend, some information to our city council, which revealed some problems on the west end. Whenever I was able to reveal just over 8% reduction in crime citywide, but the west end itself actually had an increase of over 12%. And so, but now with respect to our quadrants, that being a brand new setup, it's going to take a little time to establish some statistics for those areas, but we're going to be monitoring that. Yes.
And you will publish that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm planning to report to our city council, and I will publish that. Yes.
And one of the things, thank you, Ms. Atkins, Chief. You know, one thing I want to caution about, you know, with statistical information. And not to say that it would be manipulated. What I want to see is more emphasis and efforts put on tangible things that people can see and feel. I've always believed a piece of paper can lay down and let you write anything on it, and you can manipulate, you know, statistics. Again, not you know, saying that. You know, I've done statistics where, you know, you cut a week off, shave a week off, it looks a whole lot better. If you add a week to it, it looks a whole lot better. So what I want to see is come out of this is, you know, let's give people to where these statistics can change and people can actually feel like something is being done as opposed to reading something on a static piece of paper. Now,
I don't think that we should ignore
No.
that information, because that could be also used to get resources
Right.
in various communities that are at risk. So we don't want to negate that
No,
information.
exactly.
I understand tangible and feel it touchy, but also we need information as well.
And I'm not negating or minimizing anything about that. What I'm saying is I think, and I have written myself a little note, I think sometimes we tend to get, you know, like we're focusing on a gun, and we're not thinking about who's behind that gun. We're going to get ready to gun, pull your pants up, and then we don't think about the people that are actually in there. So I don't want to get so, you know, bogged down in statistical, but no, I'm not minimizing your point, Esther. I think that's a great point. We'll go through these. You can can see the east end where it says that those issues that we listed impact your quality of life. That's a pretty big number. 85% of the respondents said yes, it does have an impact on their quality of life. And that comment that I read in my little introduction, that young lady actually lives on the east side of town. And again, that just really, and I had a conversation with her, I actually was able to identify who she was, and she has some real fears also, but she actually lived on the east side of town. And again, the next slide, what we talk about is the area being adequately patrolled. Again, I don't want us to get too caught up in the sample size, but look at the representative representation of what it says. And do city leaders care? And I think you're going to find this continuously throughout. And again, I don't know if that's a perception issue, but perception is reality. So however the city chooses to address that, it's real to the people that have responded to this. And then we get to the north end. We had, the way that we were able to pull this together, we had people from that said North Lake or City Lake, or so we just pulled everyone in, at the north end. And then again, you can see some of the smaller sizes. Anybody here from the north side? What do you think, Weir?
I would say probably
Groves. And I think that's going to be, you'll see once we get, towards the end. And again, I'm not going to comment on, I'll just let you look at these and then just. And that one, you can, we'll go back one. And you can see who city leaders care. And again, if not everyone answered the question, we didn't have it up here. And you can see on the north end, there seems to be a difference of opinion as far as city leaders. Anybody have anybody want to speak to that, or mayor? Why do you think there's a difference on the north end as opposed to everywhere else?
I would say that it's because of the size of for that particular piece of data, there's four people
Right.
that, so it could be skewed in terms of just the number of people that were here. Obviously, they were interested in the issues that were having to do with their neighborhood. But I think we can all, as leaders, do more. And we're trying, and there are only so many hours in the day, unfortunately, and we all have, or most of us have jobs. So it's,
Like I said, Jenny, I'm going to think all that from 8 o'clock, the last person left at 5:15. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll do all I can, I'll try to lose it. So, all I can say is that a lot of us, we work. And we try to get out, but just meeting with million people that want to meet us today is a challenge. Just that, because you've got to see the 33 or 34,000. And it's not just, a lot of the problems are just small problems. They're not really major problems. It's surprising just how somebody can go into your restaurant and just get so mad at you because there's a pot over the street. And of course that's not necessarily, but a lot of the stuff we do as elected officials is just solve a lot of much trash that they pick up. A lady called me because her fire went out. Another lady called me because her recycling was picked up. And I know that sounds a lot of trivial things, but it takes a lot of time for us as individuals to make sure they get their trash picked up, or make sure they get their, it's a lot of little things that people don't realize as well elected officials do.
But let me ask you a question, Mr. Mayor, and I understand that, and what I always are careful about because I get a lot of calls, probably not nearly as big as you, but in their lives, that is a big issue.
Of course you know.
To them. So, as an intervention, do we have an intermediary or somebody in place that handles those type of things, or does everything come to you? But I think we can't negate that.
Well, a lot of things go to the police and then go to a lot of the city services. It's just, I think what Alexander was trying to say is, to let people know there's a lot of days that I never get past the county of my cleaners. The people are there from 8 to 5, 6, and we try to work with those folks, and I think that all of the discipline and acting here, you know, we return to the phone call and we see everybody that wants to see us. So, you know, I'm very proud of that as the mayor of the city. I've done this for a lot of years, and I've never turned anybody down, so. And people say we don't care, it's maybe.
Well, and I don't think, you know, I take it for what people actually say, read the comments, and again, you know, not to be adversarial about it, but when somebody puts their name on the ballot to run, I think you have to anticipate there's going to be some hours after 6 o'clock that you might have to endorse. So, and I'm not saying that to create, you know, any issues, but I just know that when people call me, and, you know, 1 minute it might be this issue, the next minute it might be this issue, but each issue is just as important to them, so I can't categorize and minimize, you know, this issue is not as important, you know, as this issue. But thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just have to, I said I wouldn't say anything, but I think I will have to. When you're saying that someone calls about the trash pickup or garbage pickup, recycling, I've had to do this maybe about 3 times. I've had to call, we have my neighbors put trucks out. And the trash truck will run up and down the street and do not pick the trash up. I mean, it can stay there for a week. And last time it was a week and 2 days before it was picked up. And I had to call. So it does matter. You know, you might think, well, that's just a little thing, but we pay our taxes. And that's what taxes are for, to pay for the services that sometimes we don't get. And it's not saying that you don't care. Maybe the person who's responsible for that job or that duty, maybe they need to be looked at. Because why should you have to call to have my trucks picked up? And then when you ride the black neighborhood, then it looks bad. You know, they don't care, they'll pick up this and whatever. But that's a concern for me because I've had to do it 3 times. And then, you know, somebody comes up, but why should I have to call when I'm sure there are other communities, not calling the names, not have to call? So it's a big concern.
I'm just going to address a couple of things. I've only been on council for not even 2 years, even during the time that I was appointed and then elected not a year ago. But I've worked for this community for the last 25 years, and I've been on the Salisbury Community Development Corporation, where that I've done probably 35 to 40 affordable housing designs for free, and worked through the Salisbury Community Development for those to be developed. Many of those are in West End, they're in Jersey City, and they're in Park Avenue. So I feel like that I haven't just talked about what I can do, but I've really done it. And since being on council, because it's new for me, what I've spent my time doing mostly is listening to all of you. I've had meetings that included Mr. Peoples, Dee Dee Bright, Kenny Hardin, many of the leaders in your community, because I'm very interested in what you all have to say and the kinds of solutions that you believe are appropriate for your particular neighborhoods, which are very different depending on even if it's Park Avenue or Brooklyn South Square or Jersey City. So I want you to know that while I'm serving you, I'm very committed and I'm very much interested in hearing what you have to say before I tell you or do something, just because I think it's the right thing. And there was a lot of input that happened from the neighborhoods about what kind of housing they wanted. They wanted it to not look like affordable housing, but to look like any other housing and to match. And that's why that I designed the way that I did. So I appreciate your support, and I love doing what I've done.
Okay, what were we talking about?
Yes, I wanted to address the issue of do the city leaders care? It would be a good thing somewhere that, I don't know what organization, but there was an action list. It was information disseminated to people in the community with different kinds of issues and city numbers or departments that could be called. And it even gave examples if the communities had this type of information in hand again. I think that it will develop more pride in the different communities in the neighborhoods. If we know who to call when something arises, then there's no excuse to say when nobody cares. You got the information right in hand, you got examples, then you do your job, do the phone call.
Okay, what we're gonna do, and thank you, Karen, and what we're gonna do is, nothing was earth-shattering today, but the bulk of the work now comes in, what are we gonna do about these three issues? We've talked about it, we cried about it, we yelled about it, we cussed about it, we've been upset about it, we said the chief, the sheriff, the mayor, everybody's not doing anything about it, but what we've got to do is we've got to come up with some real intervention. And what I mean is we can't just say, and I'm not picking on the people that I hear so much talk about, but if they just pull the pants up, we got to do a little bit better than just pull your pants up. So what interventions or what can we do? Right now, once you get some things down on the paper that you have, it's incumbent upon you to take it back to your community, whether it's you as an individual, whether it's you as a church, whether it's you as a community group. What can you come up with? Then we're going to sit down, a group of us, me, Shirley, and some of us are going to sit down, with the city and say, these are some things the community came up with. How can we help this become a reality, but also on your side, what are we going to do about these three areas? And I think once you really impact and start to put some interventions in place in one of these, the residual impact will help you fix some of the other things. So again, how do we address these issues? Think about that in the next 5 minutes. How do we address these issues to recognize progress? Again, those were the top 3 issues, but if you think back to some of the issues that we pulled out, some of them that had only 1 or 2 other things, again, those may be important, to some people in your area. And then are you prepared to take these interventions and resolutions back to your community? If it stops here tonight, then we haven't done a thing but came here and wasted a whole bunch of time for a couple of hours tonight. We've got some things in place. One of the things, and I know Mr. Pierce is here, and again, we said we're not going to let people have political speeches because it's about the community, but I appreciate all of his support and the support that he's the county commission. We've got a lot of things that the chamber is trying to do. In addition to the literacy program, and Karen and I talked a lot about the literacy program last night. We've got a session coming up on August 24th that Chris Shaw is going to facilitate on trying to improve the health of the overall community. We're going to talk about mental health. What are some other things, Chris, we're going to focus on? A lot of obesity. We have these once a month. And we have focused on disparities in education. I know Dr. Williams just walked in. Her and Ms. Woods led a great session on helping our kids achieve. So I say that to say, you don't have to be part of a 3,000-member organization, a 500-member organization. We're a group of 200 people that we just decided there are things that we want to try to accomplish each month. And then the last thing that, if we stay silent about things, that matter, again, we're going to burn this down there. We're going to burn this village down. What I want to do as Nick and Pastor Smith come up is I just want to real quick go into the comments, the survey comments. It's on the Word document. And I'm not going to go too deep in it. I just want to give you an idea, if you didn't get this email at home, what the comments actually look like, and really to, again, just to show you how many people are involved in trying to put this information. Now, when you just look at those graphs, Okay, that's a little static information. But when you start looking at these comments, and we'll just look at it, scroll down just a bit. And what we did, we broke these again out into geographic locations, and just as the graphs matched up what was on the front, then what you can do is you can look at the comments. There you go. So you can read some of the comments, and I just wanted to just give you an idea. Now, I had a great English teacher. Miss Evans was a great teacher. So Miss Evans tell her, don't get on me if some of this doesn't look grammatically correct. I transcribe just as people wrote these. So I do have a good, I tell people I'm bilingual. I can speak street language and I can speak the King's English. So I typed it the way that I saw it on the form here. But so you can just get an idea of, some of the comments and how they were worded. And then if you just keep scrolling down after people read those, on the back of the survey, people that did not get the opportunity to ask the questions or answer the questions that Nick and Pastor Smith, they were able to write their comments on the back of the paper as well. So look at these in tandem, look at these together. So as you're looking at the graph and the question says, do you feel like the area, is adequately patrolled? Then look at the comments that go along and you'll get a great sense of that. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Nicholas Means and Pastor Smith and let them really get into the working session of what we're here for. I really appreciate